Hello and welcome to Cool Conversations with ConsciousPreneurs. My name is Paula Robbins. I am the founder of ConsciousPreneurs International, and I'm so grateful to be here with my dear friend, Susie Hayes. So Susie and I met each other 10, 11 years ago. I was on the board for the Colorado Association of Psychotherapists, and we became fast friends. And part of that is because we have a very similar kind of message and purpose in our walk. And that is to really just help people to move beyond their limitations, to get out of their own way and live in their potential and more freedom. And Susie's primary, kind of subtitle is Freed from Stuck, which I love so much. So I'm so grateful to have you here. I adore you so much. Thank you for making the time today, Susie.
Thank you, Paula. I have been looking forward to this, and I am so excited because I think we're going to have a really grand conversation.
Agreed. So let's just kick this off. So I think I know a lot about what you do, but if you would share with those who are watching or listening, what are your offerings? How are you serving in the world as a consciouspreneur?
I tell people that what I help people do is become freed from stuck by accessing internal resources they never knew they had in order to create what they never knew they could. And I do that in a variety of ways as a psychotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, a sex therapist, a life and business coach, a NLP practitioner. But those are all really the roles that I take. Those are kind of the tools in my tool chest. And so I'm really here to help people understand and appreciate that whatever our challenges are, that we have so much internally that we can access, that we really can make changes in our lives, and that those changes can be lasting.
Right. And like I said, that's just, it's one of my most prominent messages in the world, that we can heal anything.
Absolutely.
So, once we kind of know where to look within, and sometimes we need a guide to do that. So you've been doing this for a long time, and I know that you've authored a few books. Tell us about your books. I think that's quite an achievement, a great success.
I just happen to have my books here with me.
Perfect.
Here they are. Can you see those?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wrote this book. It's entitled Freed from Stuck, and then the second book is the workbook that goes with it. And how this came about was that I had attended a Toastmasters group and ran into a friend of mine, and I said to him, well, what are you doing these days? And he said, well, I'm publishing books. And I said, oh, well, that's great. I said, I've never had any inkling to write a book. And he goes, oh, I bet you have a book in you. I go, no, I do not have a book in me. And he said, give me an hour and a half and I'll find that book in you. And I said, really? I said, well, I can give you an hour and a half for that. Well, we sat down and we talked for an hour and a half. And at the end of that, quite simply, what came out of that is, Susie, you help people become freed from stuck. There's your book. And I was like, that's amazing, because I had such a simple concept, but I really hadn't put it together in that way. So we began working on the book, and it really is a compilation of what I've come to understand in the healing process. And this applies to really any healing process, any modality, in terms of that there are really 5 essential elements that are needed in order for us to become freed from stuck. And we used in the book the acronym FREED.
Cool.
The metaphor of a bridge. And the acronyms stand for face the bridge, recognize the bridge, embrace the bridge, exit the bridge, and arrive at your destination. And so it's really a process that I came to understand in terms of what is really important to us in the healing process. We have to face the bridge, which is really about facing the problem. And very often when people present something to us, we understand that that's not the real problem, that the real problem is about the pain and the hurt and the wounding that has not been attended to. And so if we can really identify more clearly what the real problem is, then we can attend to that, not just the symptoms, but at the point of origin of what that's about.
Right.
And so then the next step, which is recognizing the bridge, is really about cultivating a vision, an emotionally charged vision of where we want to go, what we want to accomplish, what we want the quality of our life to be. And the more vivid that is, and the more emotionally charged it is, the more compelling it is, so that as we look across the bridge and we have that vision of where we're going, there is the hope and the encouragement and the clarity that helps us in that focus. And then embracing the bridge is really about dealing with what is going on for us that has kept us from getting there. It's about planning a strategy. It's about figuring out what we need to do differently in our choice making. It's about resolving the hurts and the wounds and the disappointments of our past. And that's the work of embracing the bridge. And then the next element of exiting the bridge really has to do with an element that we don't talk about a lot, but it is about the grieving process. That we have to be able to let go of what is no longer serving us. And in order to do that, very often it requires us to grieve. And as we move through that, then we're navigating across the bridge to arriving at our destination, whatever that may be. And when we arrive at the destination, the reality is that there will always be another bridge to cross, right? So what we want to be able to do is build upon where we have taken our life to continue to expand. And very often in that step of being freed from stuck, it's really important for us to have accountability, to be able to continue to move forward and continue to strengthen the changes, the habits, the thought processes that we've gained in the process. So when all of those elements are in place, then we know that we truly can become freed from stuck. If any of those elements are really missing in the process, we tend to find ourselves going back and repeating and repeating. So it was really amazing to me to come to understand the importance of how essential all of those elements are in our healing.
Well, I love it. And it's a powerful process. It sounds very concise, very structured, something that you can really lay out for somebody to understand. And, I know that you've done this for a long time, and I'm curious to hear, what are some of the success stories. But before we go there, tell us, how did you land on this path? How'd you find this? How'd you decide to become a psychotherapist or a coach or a sex therapist? I mean, you've got such a cool, diverse background. And I love your term alphabet soup, lots of, letters behind your name. How did you find your path? So many people are curious about finding their own purpose. So I love to share this piece with people.
I think, Paula, that very often we find our paths most effectively out of pain. I really believe that to be true. And for me, I had been in graduate school. I was completing my master's in education, and I was actually attending a seminary. And I was sitting in chapel one day, and the speaker was saying, well, with Jesus, you're never alone. You're just never alone. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, then why the hell do I feel so lonely? And I was really having this internal struggle. And I walked out of the chapel and I ran into one of the counseling professors. And I said to him, I need to talk to you. And I'd been taking a couple of classes just for the fun of it. And I began my own therapy process. And when I did that, I began to realize the changes that could take place in that. And I was so fascinated that I decided to stay on and get another master's in counseling. And so I shifted my focus from education over to counseling. I went on to develop a couple of counseling centers throughout Denver. And at the same time, I started my private practice in 1982. And so I've been doing that ever since. The rest of the alphabet soup was really just added on progressively because I really wanted to have as many resources to offer to my clients. And talk therapy can be very powerful, but as you know, Paula, sometimes hypnosis will take us much farther, much deeper, much more quickly because there's access to that subconscious mind. Right. So I just began to continue to add on these pieces and to develop this kind of repertoire of skills that I can use in the work.
I love it. So powerful. So let's talk then about some of the people that you've supported, or a person perhaps. Share a story, a success story, somebody who's really had a transformation because of this work that you've been doing for so long. I mean, this is decades that you have offered, service and impact to the greater good. So thank you for that, first of all. But tell us about somebody who's really been through this. What was their story? How did they come out?
Well, let me share with you a piece. It's something that I use when I'm doing speaking as an introduction of exploring stuck. And it's a compilation of like 6 stories. And all of these have been changed because, like yourself, I'm highly protective of the privacy of my clients. So if you think I'm talking about you as you're listening to this, any of my clients or previous clients that might be watching this, I'm not. So the first is a couple, and we'll call them Sally and John. And they had come to me for couples counseling because they were older, and he was beginning to show signs of dementia. And she was really struggling because she was frustrated and disappointed and, excuse me, and afraid about what their future would be like. The communication was really deteriorating. Another person who came to me, her name is Elaine. And she came because she was having severe chronic back pain. And she needed to make a decision as to whether or not she was going to have yet another surgery. Wow. A third woman, Joanne, was a woman that I had actually, she had come to me because she had gone through recovery successfully. But she had a lot of guilt and shame and regret for the impact of the choices that she had made, the impact particularly on her family. And she really needed to be able to work through all of that. And then another man, we'll call him Richard, came because he was struggling with his business. He didn't know if he was an entrepreneur and he was successful, but he wasn't sure he really wanted to stay in that. And so he wanted to kind of explore where he would go. And he was also in the process of struggling with physical therapy. He was an avid tennis player and he was in PT, but he was having difficulty being consistent with that. And so that was kind of a secondary issue for him in terms of, was there a way that he could really be motivated to be more consistent? The next one is a story about a family we'll call the mother Martha. and her adult children, who had really, over the years, there had been a culmination of resentment among the children. And this woman was at a point in her life where she made a decision. I really don't want to die with my children in this state. I want our family to heal. The father had already passed. And so I worked with them as a family of adults to work through some of the disappointment, basically, and miscommunication that had happened for them over the past decades. And then finally, let's see, what do I call this guy? His name is Bill. Bill came to me because he was procrastinating in his business. He had a marketing plan that he had paid good money for, and he wasn't getting it done. And he wanted to figure out why he was procrastinating. He also had a secondary issue where he tended to gravitate toward wounded women, and then the relationship wouldn't work out, and he wanted to figure out what he was doing wrong. So I present those stories to the audience and I say, what do all of these people have in common? And of course, the answer is they're stuck. And so the way that I worked really with each of these was that I walked through, and by the way, it's not like I say to people, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to do FREED, but that's really the foundation of what I do. But with each of them, we really attended to what was going on for them. So I'll just take maybe one example of these people. Let's look at Bill. He's the one who was procrastinating his business. So basically, what we did was we really looked at what was going on for him in terms of the procrastination. Mm-hmm. And what we came to understand was that there was really this deep wounding that had to do with his history in not deserving success, not deserving abundance, not deserving being able to be financially wealthy, even though he had every capability of doing that in his life. And so we began to really work at the healing of that and to look at that belief that he held and began to talk about and explore, what did he really know to be true about himself?
Right.
What did he really know in his heart about what he deserved? What did he really come to understand in terms of the quality of life that he wanted? So we identified that piece, and then we began to paint a picture of what's it going to look like when you're really diving into that marketing program and you're really in it with all of your energy and a clear focus and a lack of resistance. What's that going to look like? And there was this amazing excitement about the quality of life he would have in doing this. And so then we began to put together a strategy with regard to how he could actually manage the habit of the procrastination, meaning do what we call chunking down in terms of what is the next most simple step you can take to get on board with this process and begin to do it. And then we also explored in this the pain that he felt, particularly in relationship with his mother, and in how he had been afraid of disappointing her, and yet also not having felt fully supported by her. Like, she wanted him to be successful, but the message was also, but I don't really think you can be that. So he had to grieve the mother that he never had. He had to grieve and let go of the reality that she was never going to be in his life in the way that he needed her to be as a young boy, and even as he had hoped her to be as an adult, as an elderly adult. And then there was, of course, the celebration of when he really felt the relief of the resistance and he could actually show up in his office and do the work and pick up the phone and do the follow through and to
Sure.
really celebrate that he had accomplished that. And then he went on to continue to expand the development of his business. So that's really how that
Cool.
process of Freed from Stuck worked in my work with him.
I love it. I love it. And I'm sure that each of those stories has kind of a significant, successful ending. And I think it's wonderful. And, I think the same for you. You've come through so much in your own path to have your own successful ending. I mean, you've faced and overcome many challenges, I'm sure. As you go forward, and the intention of these conversations are really to unite and support the ConsciousPreneur community. So what is a piece of advice, something that you would share with other ConsciousPreneurs based on all of these decades of experience as an entrepreneur of consciousness, that you would offer to others of our ilk?
I think that if I were going to extend any wisdom and encouragement, I think that our highest priority is really our own self-care. It isn't about being selfish, but it is really about attending to our own needs, whatever that may be, whether it's the needs of our health or our emotional well-being, our home environment, our work environment, whatever it is. It's so important that we set that as a priority, because there is much asked for us in this, from us in this work.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to show up with the most resources that we can provide in terms of support and encouragement. And so the self-care is, I think, is such a priority for us.
Right. I completely agree. And it's not the same path of self-care for any two individuals. It might be the physical piece, it might be the emotional or the spiritual, but it's really so critical to ensure that you are not pouring from an empty cup. I mean, that's how we serve.
Yeah.
And it's how we've been served. I think that that's one of the pieces worthy of commenting on. Each of us have done our work, and we've had many, many people who have supported us that we know are healthy, are strong, who've done their work. So it's that full circle for sure.
It is, absolutely. And I think one of the greatest challenges for me in private practice has been the isolation of that work, potentially. And so you're absolutely right. For us to surround ourselves with people that are there to encourage us, to model for us, to inform us, I think that is all part of the self-care as well.
Agreed. I mean, it was my entire intention behind ConsciousPreneurs International is to bring those of us who truly understand that we have a heart of service. We want to make an impact. We want to serve the greater good, but we really need each other to stand united in order to strengthen that ability. So I'm really, really pleased that you are a part of our community. You've been a member for a while now. I love when you are with us in our gatherings, and I've always loved your message and your friendship. So thank you again. So tell anyone listening, how can they find you? Is there anything in particular that you'd like to share with them about what you do, if they are listening to this, interview today?
Yes, the easiest way to find me is freedfromstuck.com.
Cool.
Or you can also go to susiehayesnow.com, but just think Freed from Stuck and that will take you right to my website. And there are a variety of resources that you can find there. And what I would encourage you is that if you feel that there is some way in which I can support you in your journey, professionally or personally, please don't hesitate to contact me through the website, and we can set up a consultation. It's no charge, no obligation, for 45 minutes. And
Cool.
if we would decide that we'd want to do some work together, that would be where we would come together and you would share with me what your challenges are, what you would hope to get out of the work, and then we'd explore if it feels like it's a good match for us.
Perfect. Well, and there's also the resource there to find your book and your workbook. So they can order that through your website. So I will share the website link.
I'm sorry.
Great.
Yeah, or through
Perfect.
Amazon. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I will make sure that all of this is shared in the links to the interview. And I am just so grateful to know you, to walk this walk together, to be friends and just, kind of share in the journey as it is. So thank you again for making the time to be here with me. And, I'm sure that we'll stay in touch and see each other again quite soon. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Paula.